Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with the University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Macomb, Illinois, and we have got a great show for you today. My tummy is full and I am ready to talk about what just transpired here. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got to fill our bellies with periodical cicadas. And you know I am not doing this by myself. I am joined, as always, every single week by horticulture educator Ken Johnson in Jacksonville. Hey, Ken.
Hello, Chris. I think we've reached the mountaintop.
We can retire. We can quit. It's the last podcast.
Not really.
Well, we'll keep going. Just what else are we going to do, right?
Exactly.
Well, this has been a very exciting week, and I am super stoked to dive into the topic at hand and unpack what we just did. So sort of timeline set up for listeners, viewers. The folks that are going to be on the show here in just a second, we all got together yesterday and we cooked up a bunch of cicadas, and it is now the next day and we are here talking about it. Ken, I mean, this was your dream come true yesterday, right?
Yeah, crossed it off the bucket list now. So on to the next thing.
On to the next thing. That's right. That's right. Well, I know I have intentionally and unintentionally eaten insects many times in my life. So now I can just say I kind of a larger than normal insect than I would normally be used to eating. Yeah, all on purpose. So
yeah, for everybody that thinks that's gross, you eat insects all the time. You just don't know it.
Yeah. There's thresholds for insects in our food. So yeah. So. Well, I think it is time to introduce our special guests for today that helped make such an event take place. So we are joined by our nutrition and wellness educator, Kristin Bogdanis, up in the Quad Cities area in the Rock Island office. So Kristin, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, we are happy to have you. And we are also joined by entomologist Kacie, our extension entomologist here over in the Champaign-Urbana campus area. Kacie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This has been very fun.
It has been a delight. It has been really exciting getting these insects, just having the event happen, and then trying what all the squirrels and birds and everything else have been eating, and the dogs. And so lots of animals have shifted their diet from, whatever they might typically eat to consuming large amounts of periodical cicadas, including ourselves. So, Ken, as our hunter-gatherer in this instance, you're the one who went out and collected all these cicadas that we then took into the kitchen. Can you describe that process that you went through and why you have so many bags under your eyes right now and you're really tired?
Yeah,
he looks great, folks. I'm kidding.
Not really. Lots of late nights and early mornings, burning both ends of the candle. So I would go out. I took a video of all this, and I may put it in here. And I narrated it. I haven't watched any of the videos to see how well they turned out, so you may just get my description here. So I'd go out at night, somewhere between 10, 11 o'clock. Would go out to my backyard. We've got some large maple trees back there, so we have an abundance of cicadas coming out. They're like an inch thick, all the shells and stuff on the ground. I would go out and get the teneral adults. So those are the newly emerged, newly molted adults that come out of those shells you find. When they come out, they're white, they're nice and soft. So we're using those, so we don't have to remove the legs and the wings and stuff. So that's what I was collecting for this. I would just put them in a bucket, bring them inside, put them in the freezer. The freezer would slowly cool them down and eventually kill them, which is kind of the most humane way of killing insects. And then can store them in the freezer long-term until we used them here. So I did this about over a week. I'd go out for a half hour, 45 minutes at a time, collect some here and there, and slowly accumulate my cicada stash. Okay, out here collecting cicadas for the podcast. And the cicadas we're after are the ones that are white, these teneral adults that have just emerged from their old nymphal skin. So you can see some of them right here. And these are considered the best stage to eat because they're still soft. Haven't hardened off yet. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna collect these, toss them in a container, and then we'll stick them in the freezer, and that's kind of the most humane way to kill them. And then we can keep them in the freezer until we use them and store them kind of long term. As far as, you know, a little bit further there, the females, you can see they have this pointed abdomen, you kind of see the ovipositor sticking out there. Females are considered a little better than males because the males have hollow abdomens, the females are full of eggs and stuff. Our reproductive system, so you get a little more bang for your buck, a little more meat behind those. And we'll say early in the season, when they first started coming out, when I was collecting them, it was predominantly males. Now that they've been coming out for about a week and a half, seeing more and more females, probably 60-40, if not more, higher ratio than that females. So females coming out a little bit later in the season. So again, we'll just stick these in the freezer and store them there until we're ready to eat them. And I will say you can also eat the ones fully hardened adults, so the ones that are orange and black. With that, typically you're going to remove the legs and the wings because they're harder. They may get caught in your throat, but if you kind of get a little scratchy in your throat and stuff, we needed to get a drink to wash them down if you do the fully hardened adults.
So that was a lot of work, and thank you, Ken, for gathering our precious ingredient for this. In terms, so like, let's say somebody is having maybe a pocket of periodical cicadas pop up in their backyard or nearby. Do you have any additional tips or advice to give in collecting these cicadas? Is there anything to watch out for?
Yeah, so you're going to be they're emerging in the evening typically, so you're going to be going out late or in the evening, later at night, or early in the morning to get these, with a few caveats. So if you live in an area where heavy metals are a concern in the soil, you probably want to avoid collecting from there. I think there's some research that's been done that shows they can accumulate mercury in their bodies. So if you've got that concern, I would probably throw lead in and some of the other heavy metals, because they've been in the ground for 13 or 17 years, depending where you're at. They've had a chance to accumulate a lot of these metals in their bodies potentially. So avoid those areas. Areas that have a lot of pesticide use, again, they've been in the ground for a while, could have the potential to accumulate those as well. So avoid those areas if you have those concerns. And we'll probably talk about this more, but if you have a shellfish allergy, you probably either want to avoid eating them or talk to your allergist first, because they are all shrimp, lobsters, crabs, cicadas. They're all related. Cicadas are just land shrimp, if you want to think of it that way.
And shrimp, indeed. Yeah. Watch out for those land lobsters too. Yeah, got to be careful of those much larger insects. I'm sure they're going to pop up eventually. So Ken went through all that work in capturing and preserving our main ingredient. And a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago even, we reached out to Kristin about, hey, we would love to do a show where we eat these periodical cicadas. And you didn't give us any hesitation. I'm pretty sure you were like all on board. Was there any hesitation? Like, were you like, ooh, I don't know about this?
No, I think I was definitely in from the get-go. I like to try new things and be a part of like fun, different things. So I love my job. Every day is a little different in extension. So this has been great. And I've had, crickets in the past. So that was my gateway bug. But I haven't had very many, but I have had fun with like cricket tasting events in the past. So I figured this wouldn't be much different. So I was excited to be a part of this adventure.
So we developed 3 separate recipes. And before we dive into those, though, Kristin, I can't imagine, or maybe it is just a lot like, we just substitute this ingredient out for a periodical cicada. But like, what kind of research did you go into, or is there anything that was helpful in guiding how you develop these cicada recipes?
Yeah, I think anytime you cook with a new food ingredient, you're kind of like, okay, this is different. How do I use this? What is the best way to cook this? Because we want it to taste good. Doesn't matter if it's, a new kind of potato or an insect. It's all kind of the same like process our brain goes through. Fortunately, though, I had a cookbook. It's called the Eat a Bug Cookbook. And so luckily there was a recipe in here for cicadas. It's actually the pizza recipe that inspired the one that we made for the event yesterday. So from there, I just did some, looking around online. I looked at other state extension sites to see what kind of research, what kind of recipes they have done in the past. And that was really helpful. I know Kacie early on had mentioned some recipes that she had heard about. Ken was, mentioning some cookbooks that were dedicated strictly to cicadas. So all of that really helped me in, figuring out like what 3 types of recipes I wanted to highlight. And I wanted to have like a different cooking method for each type so people could get an idea of how, like, different ways you could prepare the same food ingredient.
Awesome. So I guess let's jump into the different recipes we made. So you mentioned the pizza. So you kind of want to take us through the process. And like Chris mentioned, we cooked all this stuff yesterday and we took film of that. So we'll splice in the film here of the actual creation process for all of this.
Sure. So a really good resource I was looking at was from Georgia Extension. And they mentioned, wanting to blanch the cicadas first. So if you're not familiar with blanching, it's basically you are dipping your food into boiling water for a minute or 2, depending on the food. Cicadas are relatively small, so they only really need to be in there for a minute. And this helps to clean off any of the debris that might be on the cicada still. It helps to kill off any pathogens that might be present in or on their body. It just gets them ready to use in whatever recipe that you are doing. So we went ahead and we blanched all the cicadas before we used them in the recipes and dried them off with a towel. And the pizza one was probably my favorite. So this is your pesto pizza. You can use any kind of sauce. Obviously, we use the green pesto for ours with just non-bread. So you can get, individual size and have everybody in your family create their own pizza with different toppings that they like. Any kind of, pizza crust would work well. Pick your toppings, whatever you like. Just make sure you have the cicadas on there. That's the main ingredient that you cannot leave out. It really adds a lot of flair and pizzazz. So definitely need to have the cicadas. So yeah, you just kind of arrange everything artfully on your pizza, pop it in the oven 15 minutes at, I think we did 425, 450 around there. And it's delicious. It's kind of like, I would say like a mushroom consistency, like on the pizza with the sauce and everything.
And we tried the blanched cicadas too. So right after you brought them out of the boiling water, I know, Kacie, what did you think that those blanched cicadas tasted like? Because everybody has asked me, we need to know flavor and we need to know texture. So straight out of the blanching process, Kacie, what flavor and texture were you getting?
Yeah, so I got asparagus, but I think texture-wise, more on the very cooked side, to texture-wise, I would say. And maybe that's why I was getting asparagus so much, because it really reminded me too of the texture of asparagus that you maybe cooked just a little bit too long.
Too soggy asparagus.
It wasn't bad. It just, that's kind of what. Also, there's a cicada in my office that is trying to sing. Just in case you hear that.
I think I hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to let us know he's here, and so I may have to go on mute if he really gets going.
Well, and I think that flavor lends well to that mushroom texture that you described, Kristin. That flavor, that texture, that asparagusiness. Yeah, that's definitely, I picked up some of that too.
Yeah, for that, the other toppings were what? Artichoke hearts.
Oh yeah, we had artichoke hearts, sun-dried tomatoes, mozzarella, Parmesan, red pepper flakes. So you can't go wrong with those ingredients, really.
And the cicadas fit right in.
They did.
Yeah,
they did.
So I think unless you were looking closely, you didn't really even notice. I mean, they were cicadas. They just looked like chunks of sausage or chicken or whatever.
Yeah, and from far away, I really did think, oh, those just look like mushrooms.
With eyes, mushrooms with eyes.
I mean, if you notice the eyes, there is that. But as I said far away, way.
And the other two recipes we did, one was tempura battered cicada with a spicy lime aioli. And this is one I found on a website called Grilling 24/7, I believe. And it just sounded really good. I like tempura, like shrimp. So I thought, why not try tempura cicadas? And this was pretty easy to make. So people that want to, mask what they're eating a little bit better, this might be a better recipe for them, because you really could not see the cicadas at all in this recipe with all that breading on there. So I thought that was good too. I think this was the winner when we took the poll in our class. Most people liked this one, I think.
The batter was very flavorful. Even the batter was colorful, and it fried to that golden color that batter does. But even just the batter, I'm like, I think I could just maybe eat that. But I think, was there egg in there or something? It probably wouldn't be a good idea.
There was an egg, a can of Sprite, some flour, smoked paprika.
Mm-hmm.
Give it that nice color.
That's what gave it that color and that smokiness to it. Oh my gosh, I love smoked paprika. It is a favorite of mine.
Me too.
Ken had a lot of fun battering, so he maybe had a little too much fun.
We'll say if you're doing this, sometimes they clump together and you end up with big chunks. We need to work on my technique for that.
I liked those big chunks though.
Yeah, or it's just one. You get it's 10 of them. It's one nacho. I'm gonna keep saying it because it's one nacho. It's all stuck together.
Turns into like a funnel cake, a cicada cake. And I think we do have the next Illinois State Fair food if we want to save a couple gallons of cicadas for cooking in August.
I would try it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they really should do that. Like, it seems like a good idea. People would like it.
Mm-hmm.
Get our good growing cicada booth.
We'd run out fast. I'm convinced people would be like, yes, I have to try
it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
If it's on a stick, anybody will eat it.
Well,
yes. Mm-hmm.
It's fried on a stick. It doesn't matter what's in there.
Doesn't matter. No.
And then our third recipe is the Cicada Sundaes. And I thought this was going to be the favorite, but it was not. I think there were only a couple of votes. I was super surprised that more people did not vote for this one. So this is, your typical vanilla bean ice cream with chocolate sauce and strawberries. And then instead of your roasted nuts as a garnish, you have your dry roasted and ground cicadas. And I thought this was very good. You could use that topping for a lot of different things, I think. One thing we did do differently in the recipe, it said to cook at 225 and to roast for 15 minutes. So we did that, but the cicadas were still very soft at that stage. So we ended up turning up the heat, and I think it worked better the second time around. Chris, did you turn it up to 400, or we turned it up higher? And I think that worked a lot better.
We turned it up higher in that first batch. They got nice and crisp, and you're able to blend or grind those up, and using something like a spice grinder, food processor. And we did have another batch too. We threw in the pan and we toasted, and I recall getting aromas of almond, very kind of nutty aroma off those. And I popped one in my mouth, this tastes like some kind of a dessert peanut or almond or something. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, you could do some kind of how around the holidays they have the roasted nuts. You could do something similar to that and maybe saute it with a little maple syrup or honey with some cinnamon and nutmeg. I think that'd be really good. I get kind of like a sesame seed flavor when I smell and eat the cicadas. So anything with a teriyaki or Asian flair to it, I think would be good. And also you could use the ground cicadas for a breading. So if you were going to do your homemade chicken tenders, or you needed breading for something, you could use that as a breading.
I also thought it was interesting because we didn't intend to ask people the full just roasted, it's a single cicada, we're not hiding it from you in any way. Several of the people said that was actually their favorite thing, was just to eat that, which I thought was really interesting. The ones we just threw in a pan as an afterthought, they were like, well, those are the ones I like the best.
So I guess let's we did have an audience too at our event yesterday, and as Kristen said, they each sampled each course, and they voted on their favorite. The tempura one was, I think, the favorite. But what about us? I don't know, Ken, did you have a favorite out of all of those, or did you just like the soggy asparagus-y flavored blanched cicadas?
Slimy yet satisfying.
Yes.
They're not really slimy.
No.
Don't want to turn anybody off. I mean, I liked the pizza and the battered. I think they were both. I mean, I liked all of it. So, if I had to pick one, I don't know. It would be the pizza or the battered ones. Those are both good.
Yeah. Kacie, did you already say you like the tempura ones? The
Yeah,
battered
I
ones?
don't think I said that in this one, but yes, those are the ones I liked the best. In fact, I kind of kept eating them. The pizza was good too. But yeah, I like the tempura ones the best. Yeah.
I myself am a sucker for a good pizza, and that was delicious. So I was a vote for the cicada pizza. But Kristen, I mean, I don't, when we all cook at home, sometimes we're very critical of our own dishes. So maybe you're the best judge here. What do you think is your favorite cicada dish that was prepared?
Well, I think they all turned out pretty good. I was a little nervous going into it because I had never tried any of these recipes. And that's, when I do a program, it's like I always have to make sure they taste good first. And I couldn't do that because I didn't have any cicadas. I'm up in Northern Illinois, so I didn't have anything to work with. So I was like, oh my gosh, this has to be good for people. But I think, out of all three, I think I liked the pizza one the best. You just can't go wrong with all of those flavors, the pesto and the cheese and the sun-dried tomatoes. I just love all of that. And that's something I eat regularly anyway. So that would be something easy for me to adapt if I do want to, do this again. It'd be easy for me to make that when the cicadas start coming out. But for sure, the pizza, probably second would be the soggy blanched asparagus ones. Yes.
And I think that pizza, if you're not, I mean, obviously you're going to be looking at it, but if you're not paying close attention, I think that pizza kind of masks the cicadas a lot more. So if you have somebody that's a little more hesitant, maybe put a little more cheese on there, or put the cicadas and the cheese on top, so it's melted and they can't see it.
And we left them whole, so you could always, chop them up a little bit because the sun-dried tomatoes and the artichoke hearts were chopped up. So you could always do the same thing with the cicadas. And they're not huge. They're only about, an inch or so.
Yeah. I think we were talking before the show, and our main comment we got from a lot of other people who saw pictures or saw the cicadas was, oh my gosh, they have heads and eyes, and you left those on. And so, yes, we did. I mean, it all tastes the same, but as Kristen said, if you want, take the head off so you don't have to look at them while you're eating.
It'll be a lot of work, though.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
A lot of twisting. Yeah. Yeah. So I again had way too much fun doing this. This was a lot of fun. And people are, if you're curious, we will post these recipes in the show notes down below. So if you want to try them, you print them off and try them at home.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yes. Oh, so when it comes to eating insects, Kristen, is there any benefit, or can we just throw some chicken on there and it's the same thing? Like, is this protein that we're eating? Like, is it good, bad, healthy fats? Like, what's inside of this bug that might be even more incentive to try it?
Yeah, so I think when you think about edible insects as, a potential protein source, there is a lot of other benefits too, in addition to the protein. So it's got a good, source of protein. It's got a good source of fat. It's got, a variety of vitamins and minerals. So if you think about insects as a whole, I mean, it's going to depend on, the species you're looking at, its developmental stage, kind of like its environment, like where did it grow up? What's in the soil, or, where did it come from? And its diet too is going to play a big part in that. So Yeah, it's hard to kind of like pinpoint each one of those. There's a lot going into all of that. But in general, just think of edible insects as a good source of protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals. Looking at the cicada, it's going to have some extra carbohydrate compared to something else that doesn't have like that, exoskeleton. And I think for the latest article I looked at was around 16% carbohydrate. In terms of fat, we're getting more of those heart healthy, unsaturated fats, which is something that we're always telling people to get more of, and less of that saturated fat that you would find in like something like red meat. So those are some definite pluses. It's also gluten-free. A lot of people are, opting to go gluten-free for a variety of reasons, for GI issues or whatever it may be. Also keep in mind though that cicada and maybe some of the other ones that have that tough outer shell is that if you eat a lot of them, it can cause GI upset. So just keep that in mind. And I know Ken, I think you mentioned earlier about, harvesting at the teneral stage before that hard outer shell has fully developed. So you can cut back on any potential gut issues like that. But I think there's a lot of nutritional value, and they're nice because they have a low environmental impact. So
saying, I know for crickets, I would assume this would be the same. Are they more efficient at growing, protein production that compared to all of our livestock and stuff too? So we'll go to Kacie for this one. So I think we've seen probably an increase in interest in eating insects in the United States, and get into why that is in a little bit. But so periodical cicadas, would it be practical for them to become a common ingredient in American cuisine, and if not, what other insects could we look at for that?
Yeah, I think with periodical cicadas, I think for the novelty of them, every place that a brood comes out, which, we have a brood somewhere in the US most years. I can imagine that being something that pops up in those areas every time. But as far as being something that becomes part of the diet, given their long life cycle, it isn't something that we would suggest, oh yeah, that's something that we could definitely make into a food source. They take 17 years or 13 years to become adults. Maybe the worst possible thing we could use for a food source outside of the novelty of when they all come out at once. But of course, as you mentioned, there's things like crickets, which have been, sort of domestic animals in production for exotic pet food for a very long time. Things like lizards and that sort of stuff, the things that you can buy in the stores, mealworms. And so for the humans side of it, protein powders seem to be kind of where the insect consumption for humans is going. So if you think about, anybody who does bodybuilding and they buy the protein powders with the chocolate, there's quite a few companies that are putting cricket basically powder into those instead of the milk-based proteins. And so that I think is a viable market. And then on a larger scale, insects as pet food, things like black soldier flies, and then feed for chickens. If you think about, how many people now have chickens in their backyard, you can buy your chicken feed that is, of course, made of insects. And there's companies that specialize in that as well. So maybe a little less on the getting humans in the United States to eat a full insect outside of the novelty of, buy this bag of mealworms or something. But on a larger scale, the powder side of it probably is where we would be trending towards.
I think we should probably point out that outside of people of European descent, I would say is probably a good generalization. Western culture, we're kind of the outliers in that we don't eat insects. A lot of cultures around the world in Asia and Africa and Central South America eat insects as part of their diet. Maybe not a staple, but they do consume them with some regularity.
Yeah, and I guess I always think about on a larger scale, if you're thinking about incorporating those, even within the cultures that do it, it's still more of a small scale, kind of like our novelty with cicadas a little bit. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places, as you said, it's not really a staple of the diet. And I think with the cricket powder, I think some of those, the goal is to make those things more of a protein staple than, you know, things generally are for humans eating insects. Possibly. But yeah, I mean, that's also the always specifying in the United States. Because yeah, it's not, yeah, it's definitely different other places.
Hmm. Well,
Street
that is
food.
it. It's just yes. I think it's the big agricultural problem that we are all tackling right now. In that, how do we convert sunlight into our calories? And you know, right now, the current U.S. model is not much plant-based, lots of meat-based. You know, beef and poultry and pork, all that stuff. But with a growing global population, less and less farmland availability, how are we going to feed more people with less land? Converting, again, that sunlight into calories. Insects are more efficient at that in terms of where they stack in the food chain. So it seems like a pretty viable option for us to gain some of our calories from insects for the future. And that soundbite can be taken way out of context, I'm sure. And good growing. This is our last podcast. So yeah.
I think people, once they try it though, I mean, if once they get past that fear factor of eating insects, like I'm eating a bug, you know, once you get past that, you're like, oh, it tastes like asparagus. Oh, it tastes like mint. Oh, it tastes like something else I like. Then it's not as absurd to think, oh, maybe I can incorporate this into more of my diet. Like maybe I can make this can have like a permanent place in my diet, you know? So I think like anything, it just takes a lot of like positive repetition, a lot of you just have to try it like so many times. Like when you're little, you have to try something 10 to 12 times before you might like something. So it's just like any new food. You just have to keep trying it. We just have to keep creating those positive environments for people to take part in, like the workshops we did, tasting events, like all of those are going to help people, you know, change their mindset around the possibility of adding this to their, you know, menu
And
on a regular basis.
We have Taco Tuesday, Meatless Monday, Cicada Sundae, which is one of the recipes that we used yesterday. So yeah, I mean, it just, you can slowly incorporate that stuff into our diet, and yeah, just try new things. We live in this pretty cool world. Let's try new things, and it doesn't have to be just, you know, same cereal every single day. Throw some cicadas in that milk. See what happens.
And it's not fear factor. Fear factor is bad. No one eats things like they do on fear factor. And I'm convinced that set back the idea of anybody trying insect food a fair amount, because without that, you aren't picturing, oh, I've got a live insect. Nobody eats anything live. And so, yeah, fighting against that, making things that are yummy, that look yummy, is all for the better.
Yeah, that cultural stigma is very strong.
It's very strong, and it existed before. You know, we have the ick factor with eating insects, but then when that show became a thing, it was like, no, this is something that horror movies are made of, so don't do it. You know, like that just made it way worse.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move into the closing portion of the show.
Should we give our 5 stars, 4 stars, give our star ratings for the meal?
Yes. Yeah, Ken, let's talk about the star ratings here for this meal. I mean, Michelin style, right? Is that what we're looking at? What's the I don't know, what is the scale? Is it 4 or 5? Like, what's the max? I don't know. I'm not that
7.
10?
I don't know. I've never been to one.
100.
I don't think I've been to
I
one
don't know either.
I'll look it up.
4,000.
4,000 gold Michelin stars.
1 million.
I can throw out numbers randomly.
It's up to 3.
Up to 3. Okay.
3 Michelin stars.
Man, that's a rough scale. Whew.
That was more than that.
So the quality is, let's see what it says here. Okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So, like the little description was like, oh, this is exactly what I want. And then you click on it, it's like, wait, what is this?
Nope. It's like, oh. It's
Okay, so
weird.
it's quality of the ingredients used. There's 5 criteria. There's quality of the ingredients, mastery of the flavor, and then like the rest is kind of blocked out and I can't.
Presentation or
Oh, here we go. Quality of the ingredients, mastery of the flavor and cooking technique, the personality of the chef in the cuisine, harmony of flavors, and consistency between visits.
okay.
Well, we
Oh,
had one
every-
visit, very consistent.
I have to try
Every
this again.
13 years.
Every 13.
Yeah, we can't give a rating for the next 13, 26, 39 years, because then we'll have done it 3 times.
There you go.
So it was a 1 star signifies a very good restaurant. 2 is excellent cooking that is worth a detour. 3 is exceptional cuisine that is worth a special journey.
Mm.
So I'm thinking maybe it should be 3 since
Yeah, we were
It's
working
13.
on that whole journey.
it's 13
I
years.
think so.
Very special journey. Yes. Yes. I think the ingredients were top notch. Presentation was outstanding. Personality of the chef really shone through. And yeah, 3 stars all the way. Also, I could probably eat that tempura dipping sauce on everything. Yeah, so that it was delicious. Again, recipes in the show notes down below. All right, well, that was a lot of great information about eating cicadas, periodical cicadas, I should clarify. The Good Growing Podcast is a production of University of Illinois Extension, edited this week by Ken Johnson. A special thank you, Kristin Bogdanis, nutrition and wellness educator up in Rock Island County. Thank you so much for being on the show, putting together our menu, cooking an outstanding meal, and just all around just introducing us and a lot of other people to eating insects. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Kacie, extension entomologist over in Champaign, Urbana, as I like to say, Shampoo Banana, over there, learning us all about them bugs. So thank you very much, Kacie, for also being with us on this journey, helping be our guide. You are our spirit animal, our shaman, our the medicine woman. Yes, thank you so much for everything. And our
Spirit.
mascot.
There's the spirit animal right there.
I
There's
think
the
that's what
spirit
this
animal right there. So thank you also for helping us out with this.
Oh yeah, wouldn't have missed it.
And Ken, you did great too.
And
Thank
Ken
you.
was here.
Yes, thank you, Kristin and Kacie. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to find some more insects to eat, or
Yes.
4
Anytime. Would love
4
to.
years to do this again. And
Absolutely.
when
Yeah.
the next brood comes out. And here, going to cut in real quick. There's a few people we forgot to thank while we were recording the podcast. First, Matt Wiley and Jenna Brash from our state communications and marketing team. They took all of the video and photos of us cooking and eating the cicadas. So thank you to them. We could not have done this without them. Also, the staff at the Sangamon County Extension Office. Thank you for letting us invade your kitchen and eating some of the cicadas with us, and as well as everybody else who came to the office and tried cicadas. Thank you to all of you. And Chris, thank you as always. And let's do this again next week.
Oh, we shall do this again next week. We will be sleeping off on our cicada slumber. Next week, we'll come back with you with a brand new show. So look forward to that. So listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing.
You're good.
It's like I really feel so.
Oh, it's video.
Oh, okay.
Just eat it. Ready?
All right.
Yep. Let's do it.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
Asparagus. Like
It is asparagus.
asparagus, green beanie, yeah.
It's good.
yes, it is.
Surprisingly good.
I mean, it's
I could-
better than crickets.
You could do it
Way
with
better
your
than-
leg
Yeah,
in my
and better
throat.
than mealworms. too.
Up again.
I bet they are.
Oh, God.